My goal is very simple. I want my homeowners to take my advice. Whatever I recommend, whatever you decide as a professional they should do, then you want them to take your advice, whether that's an additional repair, fix some ductwork, add a mini split or a water heater, or if you're selling a new system. Your hope is they take your advice. But here's what you got to understand. The degree to which they take your advice at the end will depend on the amount of trust they have in you. The amount of trust that they have in you will depend on the strength of the relationship they have with you. And the strength of the relationship that they have with you will depend on the effort and time that you invest in building that relationship. So you really have a lot of control over the trust level at the end because you control the amount of effort throughout the entire process to build that relationship. Now, I know it's tough. Some people don't want to talk much, and it's hard to break the ice with a lot of people, and that's okay. Your job, all you can do is the best you can do. You have to make the effort. That's the process. The homeowner controls the outcome. So my process might be to try to build a great relationship, but I might be talking to the biggest prick on the planet who doesn't want to talk to me. Well, we're probably not going to have a good relationship because he controls the outcome, but I control the effort to try. And all you can do is the best you can do. So don't worry about the outcome. You know, that's what Joe the concrete guy was saying. He goes, a lot of people say yes to what I recommend. Some people say no. I don't control the outcome. What I do control is the process. So in step 3, you're going to have this sit-down conversation with them, and it's going to take a few minutes. It might be 5, 10, 15 minutes, depending on the nature of the situation. The last thing that you want to have happen in that situation, and we've all experienced this, you get down to the end, and your homeowner says, I got to go pick up my kid at school, just email me the bid. And that's the kiss of death, right? We don't want to email bids. We want to present options. We want to present the repairs, the upgrades, or whatever it is. My hope is to have my homeowner make their decision about me and my company with me sitting right in front of them. Because if they reach a final decision and I'm sitting right in front of them, it's much more likely to be a yes. Because if they're looking over a bid that I emailed later on that night, I'm just a big number, right? All that relationship, all that goodwill, all that connection between your homeowner, it's long gone. It's long gone. And so you want to have time to do that. So that takes us back to step 1, which is to make sure we have the time to do that. So the first bullet point there, making your introduction. I'm not going to insult your intelligence. You guys have been doing this for a long time. You know how to meet people and greet people. Park your car off the driveway if you can. We just had a guy had a big oil leak in our driveway, and we got to get it fixed and get it whatever's going to happen. We try to park on the street if we can. You got to use your booties, stupid things like that we just have become part of the industry now. So I'm not going to bore you to tears with that kind of stuff. That second bullet point, though, is critically important, and I see far too few technicians doing this. Number 1 is to gain a time commitment. Even if your dispatcher or your CSR has already gotten the time commitment, you want to verify that you have enough time to do your job. Because if you find out they only have a half an hour, you might need to change your strategy. How you might do that, it can happen a million different ways. Maybe you got to go to lunch and then come back when they come back or whatever. But you want to know up front so that you don't get down to the end. They say, I got to go pick up my kid from kindergarten. Can you email me the bid? Because again, that's the kiss of death. And you need to explain it takes the time that it takes. So you got to get this time commitment and explain why it takes the time, because they may have had somebody in the house before, if you're on a maintenance call, for example, that was there for 20 minutes and gone and did a really shitty job, And if the homeowner doesn't understand why it's taking you the time to do your job so thoroughly, sometimes it can actually undermine your credibility and hurt the value. For example, I'm with a technician one time, and we're in this very nice home. There's a system in the attic, and there's one in the basement. And this company out in California was super, super thorough. Their maintenance technicians got 2 calls per day, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, and that was it. Because they wanted their technicians to spend the time in the home and to build that relationship, build that trust with the homeowner so the homeowner would take their advice at the end. So we're in the attic, and it was a very difficult installation. It was very hard to get to, but just the way, because it was situated in the attic. And so the technician, on a maintenance call, they pull out the blower motor, and they take it down and show it to the homeowner, and then they take it outside and clean it, and they bring it back, and then they reinstall it. I mean, that's the level of detail they went to. They went through the system top to bottom, tip to stern. As a result, it takes time. And because this particular installation, he was having a tough time getting the blower motor in and out, it took probably an hour and a half to do the whole thing. And I'm thinking to myself, what a value for this homeowner that this technician is delivering this type of service on a $79 or $89 maintenance call, whatever it is. I mean, this is the guy I would love to have in my house looking at my system. I mean, I got guys from my company, the one I sold. They'll come out, they'll just do some minor stuff, and then 2 weeks later something will go out. And I'm like, well, why didn't we just kind of look at this? And it's because they don't want to take the time. It's hard to find people to take that kind of time. This guy did. And I thought, what a great value for the homeowner. And then we're finishing up in the attic, and we're walking down the stairs. We walk past the homeowner's office, and I hear him on the phone, and he's complaining to somebody about how long it's taking the HVAC guy to do his job. And here I'm thinking, this guy's providing so much value to this homeowner, and this guy's bitching about it. And the reason he was bitching about it is because he didn't understand, because the technician never explained why it takes the time that it does. So for time commitment explanation, it's very, very simple. Mr. or Mrs. Homeowner, depending on how long it takes to do your diagnostic or your maintenance, whatever it is, depending on the number of questions that you have, this process is going to take an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Is that going to be okay today? And if they say, oh, sure, that's fine. You look at your watch. I got 8 o'clock or whatever, so there's no place you got to be at 9:30. Nope, I'm good to go. So now I want to explain why it takes that much time. So you might say, Mr. Homeowner, by the way, this is where you will get some scripting, some crucial conversations. Mr. Homeowner, you might be surprised that it takes an hour and a half to do a proper maintenance. You may have had companies that have done them very, very quickly. But when we do a maintenance, we're really doing a thorough inspection on your system from tip to stern. And it takes longer to do it that way. And then you just say, but I'm sure that's the kind of service you expect for your $89 or whatever there is, right? Make them say, yes, that's the kind of service that I expect. It's much harder for them. Now, number one, they understand why it takes the time because you're good and you're thorough. You can even, if you take the blower motor out, explain, say like, other companies don't do this. I'm going to remove the blower motor. It's like pulling the engine from your car. I'm going to take it outside and get all the grease off of it, get all the dirt off of it, bring it back. It takes time to do it that way, but I'm sure that's the kind of service you expect. Now my homeowner's not going to be pissed off at me if it takes me an hour or an hour and a half because they see it as what it is, a great value, a killer value. Instead of somebody coming in, I had to fire a guy one time. He basically just wiped down the cabinet, and the homeowner sent me pictures of took the cover off, and it was filthy in there. He didn't even change the little filter. And what pissed me off the most is it was an older mobile home with an older couple, and the technician's attitude was like, they just, it was filthy and they don't know. And I'm like, dude, you're fired on the spot. You have to be willing to take the time. I always tell technicians and salespeople, to be a true professional in this business, you have to be willing to extend yourself emotionally and professionally with or without getting the business. You don't know for sure anything is going to happen at the end that's good, but that's the outcome. You got to focus on your process, and your process is extending yourself emotionally and professionally to your homeowners. So that takes time, and you want to tell them why it takes that amount of time so they're not getting pissed off thinking you're just lollygagging around. So again, you'll see it's just a couple of sentences. It's very, very quick. It takes maybe 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and you'll see that. But you want to get that time commitment and make sure they understand why it takes the time that it takes. The next bullet point there, get permission to offer additional solutions. This is really helpful at the end because sometimes you might feel awkward, making additional recommendations. Now, I will tell you that in our industry the last 25 years, people have really been pushing on, getting homeowners to replace systems or do repairs, and you don't want to be that guy. You don't want the homeowner to ever feel pressured or cornered. That's not going to work out well for us in the end. So what I do up front is we get permission up front to offer additional solutions should they come up. So say something once we qualify the time, explain why it takes the time it does. Something just as simple, Mr. or Mrs. Homeowner. A lot of times when I'm doing my inspection or maintenance, whatever it is, we'll come across some issues that are, could be safety issues, code issues, comfort issues, different things. If I find something like that, should I just keep that information to myself or should I share it with you? And they'll almost always say, well, no, if you find it, let me know. But it's because you're doing the takeaway. If I find something like that, should I keep that information to myself? I physically encourage people to step away and pull their hands back. Would you like me to keep that information to myself, or would you like me to share it with you? And because you're pulling away, they're going to be drawn into you. If you've ever had this experience, you can try it there in your office, like have somebody put their palm up just like this and put yours next to it. And don't say a word, just start pushing. The second that you start pushing, they're going to start pushing back. It's human nature. When we push people, they push back. We have to be very, very careful. People have been pushed so much in our industry on service calls and sales calls that we have to be more subtle. So I encourage you to, is that information I should keep to myself, or is that something I should share with you? And you'll find them leaning into you physically, right? Like, no, if you find something else, let me know. Well, that's great, because in step 3 later on, I'm going to say, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, earlier you said to let you know if I found any other issues. So I've got some good news and some not so good news. Is there a place we can sit down and chat? Right? But now you're simply responding to their request because they've asked you to share these other solutions. So now you've got permission because you found that the airflow in Bobby's room was insufficient. You found, other problems, or maybe they told you little Susie had allergies, and all this information you're gathering, just like, Joe, the concrete guy, you're gathering all the information, looking for all the problems that you can solve for these homeowners. You're going to recommend those solutions at the end, and they're going to say yes or no. And no's a perfectly acceptable answer. I find sometimes in sales, people are so concerned, well, what if they say no? Who gives a shit if they say no? That's not my job. My job is to find every problem I can solve and make a recommendation, and then let the chips fall where they may. But people get so caught up in thinking it's high-pressure sales. It's high service, not high pressure. It's all about delivering a high level of service that your competition is not willing to do. That's how you beat your competition in the marketplace. You have to be willing to do the things that they won't do.